everybody, and welcome back to Production Value. I'm Naomi. This is my podcast. You know what's going on. Unless you don't, in which case, welcome. This is a podcast about interviewing some amazing creators and producers about how they make what they make, how they get their stuff done. And I'm so excited to be joined by Evan Lian from a cartoonist for the New Yorker and from a lovely podcast, Two Dudes Watch Cartoons. Amazing to have you here, Evan. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me on today. I'm truly honored.
Thank you. I mean, I have, of course, known you for a year or so now. And once it was sort of revealed to me that you were a cartoonist, I was like, what an incredible profession. Fascinating on so many levels. And then to listen to you on other podcasts about your journey, I was like, we gotta dive in at just basically DMing you, begging you to show up here so I could ask you a million questions. So thanks for saying yes.
I love nerding out about cartoons. And so I will take up any opportunity to any platform that allows me to.
I will too. I'm a huge, I was such a comic strip person when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
Loved, not only Peanuts, which I think I am at this point most notorious for, as a certified Snoopy fanatic, but also Calvin and Hobbes is like such a
formative.
Yes, exactly. Cornerstone of my experience. So we're going to dive deep and be thorough about it. So I want to start with the feeling of following your dream to do cartoons, because I think it's very scary to say, hey, I'd like to be a cartoonist. I'd like to create art for a living when there's so much art out there. And I think it's also a very daunting concept. Hey, you have to be funny and be good at drawing forever.
Yeah.
For your whole job for many years. How was getting over that hurdle of like, let me try and pursue this creative goal of mine?
Yeah, and this is actually, it used to come from a place of, let me preface, I make this disclosure that it's not my full, I don't make my full entire living off of cartooning. And it used to be sort of a point of insecurity for me. I'm like, I feel like a little bit of a fraud. I feel like I got to say I have a day job, but cartooning is like my creative pursuit. It's my passion. And it is no less stressful having to sort of be creative for money in a sense, and like have your work viewed in that sense. But it really started for me as an escape from a previous day job. I was working at a big bank. I was taking these licensing exams for like investment stuff, and I just like, my go-to in school was like, if I can't focus, I would just doodle in the margins, and that's what I started doing again. And I found myself doing that a lot. And I was like, and I had a passion for comics and comic strips growing up, but I had kind of gotten away from it. I never really learned drawing in any formal sense, but it became this thing that I like fixated on because I really did not like that previous job. And so it's really blossomed into this wonderful opportunity.
When you are drawing, because listen, I went to art camp, which my parents love to remind me of. They're like, you went to art camp and you're not good at art. How do you judge yourself? Because I think it's very scary to create and then say, am I good enough to consider myself a professional? I think a lot of people demote themselves in some ways because they don't think of themselves as good enough to be considered a professional. But in reality, I think they're doing themselves a disservice. So for you, where were you finding the confidence in your art and your art abilities?
I feel like I've always grown up with being pretty self-aware of like what my capabilities are. I'm not great at drawing. I'm okay. I've learned some things, and I've definitely gotten better since I started with the New Yorker. But I just remember, like, I fell in love with the format. I watched that there was this documentary called Very Semi-Serious about the previous New Yorker cartoonist editor, and it sort of followed a couple of the then current cartoonists, they're still cartooning for it, but it talked all about the process, and it like followed them as people, and that's sort of where the whole world of it cartooning was revealed to me. And it's like, oh, these people aren't, it's not like I mean, it is a profession, it is a career path, but these people aren't like professional artists that went to cartooning school. It's like a lot of them have day jobs. They're, some people are like screenwriters or teachers or this or that. And like, that's so much more of the experience that people don't maybe understand. And so that's really what gave me the confidence to sort of pursue it. It's uh, like anyone can really do this. Anyone, and literally it's there's like an online portal where you can submit cartoons
Yeah.
to once a month, and that's sort of how I got started. But yeah, really just seeing that, I was like, oh, this is like a thing that normal regular people do. And like, and what I found is it's like people, I don't make my living off of cartooning, but everyone who does this has this like, it's the challenge of like finding a new joke, a new way to approach a scenario, finding something new and relatable in the human experience. It's like an addicting pursuit to just like try and articulate the human experience that way, and that's honestly what keeps me going. And I think I would guess a lot of other cartoonists.
Wow. I also think strips like Calvin and Hobbes, and also I was just thinking of The Far Side, and I was just thinking of how uh, insane it is to have an idea be so clear through like one panel, or have a feeling or a joke or a concept be like, hey, I have this square to give you this information and how I'm feeling. And especially for the New Yorker, right? Because comic strips at
Yep.
least have 4 beats. Sometimes New Yorker, here you go, 1. Sometimes it's like literally no words, just tiny little in
Yeah.
between paragraph
Uh-huh.
concepts.
And that's sort of the fun of it. I always say I'm like kind of a better writer than I am an artist, and it's like, I the idea usually forms as like the caption first for me, and then I'm like, I
Mm.
hope I can draw this, and then like I do my best at it. But I have almost the opposite problem of like, I am so tuned into the New Yorker single panel format, where it's like, that's my ideal format. I don't have to draw a single character like 2 times and make it look the same, because I'm awful at that. I don't have to create a storyline because I'm awful at that. And people will ask me like, are you going to do, like, you should do a graphic novel? I'm like, that sounds daunting and terrifying. I'm going to stick to my little box of jokes that are fleeting. So yeah, I almost have the opposite problem of like, I only can do the single panel sometimes.
You like the minimalism side of
Yes, I'm a lazy cartoonist at that. Yeah.
so in your actual creation, in when you are designing a cartoon, drawing a cartoon, does it always begin with the line, or are you given sometimes prompts? I'm so curious, like, what's the starting off point? You're jumping off the diving board, and then what's the first step once you have the idea?
Yeah, so the way the New Yorker works is there's the magazine, which they buy about 15, 20 cartoons a week out of, thousands and thousands. And then so they publish, 15, 20 a week, and then they buy as many, just about. And then there's the daily cartoon, which is like the more timely, like news headline kind of stuff. And so both of those you can, or the magazine you can pitch once a week, and then dailies you can pitch daily, obviously. But it's really, everyone contributes on a freelance basis. You don't get prompts. You pitch whatever comes to mind, and then it goes to the editors. And then if you've done a good enough job, they'll say okay, and they'll buy one of your cartoons. And it's pretty few and far between for me, but it's always as rewarding. Sometimes you might get, not necessarily paired, but sometimes a writer might reach out to you if they have like an idea for a longer comic type of piece, or their own caption that they just can't draw. So I've worked with a couple writers at times, but generally I'm writing, drawing my own stuff. And yeah, and you don't really get prompts.
Yeah. Where's that first step come in for you of getting inspired? If you're looking to submit a couple cartoons in the next month, what where does your inspiration journey, your creative journey begin? Are you taking a walk, or are you just sitting at your computer and doom scrolling? Where does it go?
Kind of a lot of doom scrolling. I used to do a whole lot of like this whole production in my head of like word association and mind mapping and like this and this, and I'd write down all these words that I like or that I heard or whatever and try to match it with there are cartoon tropes like the therapy couch or Rapunzel or Sisyphus pushing the thing up, and I do that to some extent still, but what I found from that process is like a lot of it was me just trying to write jokes for the sake of being clever, and that's a lot of fun. A lot of people enjoy that, or like writing jokes for wordplay, and I've over time found that like at least for the New Yorker, a lot of times what resonates, I mean, even beyond the New Yorker, just with what I post, on my account, on my Instagram account and stuff, like most of the times what resonates isn't the most clever pun or the most clever wordplay, but it's really just like a reference that a lot of people will get, or like a really super relatable experience that I might articulate in a different way. And like it became like pretty clear to me because when I was growing up, like I used to nerd out on like Greek mythology in school and stuff, and like so I loved that there are so many cartoon tropes that have to do with Greek mythology. I'm doing Sisyphus, I'm doing Icarus, I'm doing this, that, and the other, and sometimes my wife's not as into it as I am, and she'd be like, "I don't get this one. Can you explain it to me?" And I'm like, and so it's like sort of forced me to look beyond and like really hone in on just like, okay, I think the challenge really is trying to like find that relatable thing, because you do rely on the viewer, the reader, to sort of finish the joke for you. So they have to be able to understand from their own life experiences and like references that they're aware of. So yeah, in that way, I've sort of honed in my process a little bit. Also, maybe become a little more selective, or I don't know. I'm just like a little lazier and don't always want to draw all those ideas, so I'm a little pickier. But yeah, I generally start with just like taking inventory of what's going on in my life, like, and it still can include what I'm watching, news I'm seeing, and that kind of stuff. I'll scroll NPR. Before I worked remote, I used to have like an hour-long commute, so I would just listen to NPR, and
Yeah.
and sometimes I would draw a cartoon and be baffled why they didn't accept my pitch on like, oh, these German scientists discovered a new thing about DNA. Like, what? Why didn't you buy this cartoon? And it's like, oh, maybe that's not the most exciting headline.
No, I would say that the Venn diagram of like New Yorker magazine purchasers and NPR listeners is like almost a full eclipse. Like,
you would think, yeah.
they'll know it. They'll know it. It's fine.
I'd be so certain too. Like anytime I pitch a daily, I'm like, this is the one, and it's like never the one.
Did you have to get used to the sort of like kill your darlings mentality of, hey, this didn't get purchased, like I just have to let it go? Or do you think like, well, it's fine, I'll just post it on Instagram? Like when you are faced with that rejection of something you were maybe high on, how do you process that?
Yeah, rejection is a huge part of it, at least for me, at least for a cartoonist of my caliber. I would say when I started out, so you can pitch like 10 a week once you sort of get into the fold. And I was doing that for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and maybe sold like 5 right off the bat. And that's pretty good. I got lucky. And then like, it's been like 5 years, and it's like, okay, maybe I've gotten to 10. So like rejection is I've drawn and pitched hundreds and hundreds of cartoons, and at first it feels like super personal, but like then you realize like there's just like the New Yorker it's the cream of the crop of the cartoonists.
Yeah.
And they're the last like big publication that really does cartoons and just the quality of cartoons. So I've sort of like humbled myself and be like, it's a privilege to be here. I need to up my game, and it pushes me to really examine my own writing process and see like what maybe isn't working. Thinking like, again, going back to like trying to find the relatable and trying to find the universal, having to keep in mind that like the editor is in a different like age demographic than I am. Sometimes I feel like my stuff is maybe a little too chronically online or whatnot, but I'm meandering way beyond
No,
the
I
question.
like it's so I mean who doesn't think to themselves like I think this is only for my bubble, especially now when
Mm-hmm.
something like Twitter you'll like one concept and it'll show you like 5 other tweets and you're like, I guess is everybody being inundated with Australian Survivor all the time? I don't know. You lose
Yeah.
yourself a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, definitely, I used to be much more precious about the readings because then I would also like, obviously, I had tons and tons of them, and then I would also be trying to pitch them. Like, if I didn't get the New Yorker, I would go down the line and try and pitch a couple other places, and that was really few and far between too. Like, I got one in Reader's Digest once a long
Ooh.
time ago, and like that's cool.
I
But
say I
like the
cannot believe that they're making those.
right, yeah,
That's
right. Yeah, you might have seen it in your dentist's office or something, but like, uh, after a while, it's like, okay, really, what I'm going for is the New Yorker. Like, that's the sort of readership and the audience I'm aiming for. That's what I know how to write, and so, um, I've sort of let go of like being so obsessive about like publishing, and honestly, a lot of like my cartooning career, whatever you want to call it, has come from just me sharing all of the rejected stuff. Some of my most popular quote unquote cartoons, like the ones that do really well on Instagram, are not ones that have been published. And people are like, oh, how could they reject this and this or that? And it's like, it didn't hit, what they were going for, but obviously it still resonates with a lot of people. And so that has been like, that's been a blessing in disguise because it helps me like sort of see value that I didn't see in it before as it being like a rejected cartoon.
mm. So who would you say are your artistic and comedic writing influences where are you drawing upon from what you loved?
Hmm. Comedic is tough. Artistic, there's a cartoonist, uh, one of the like very early ones. I want to say his name is Sean Day. He drew like 30s, 40s, 50s. But like he has this really minimal line work and style and just like really punchy cartoons. My favorite cartoon of his is this one where there's like a shoe salesman helping a lady put on shoes, but then he's like looking down at the next box of shoes and he's holding a gun to it because he's like mad, but it's captionless and it's like very funny when you look at it. I'm doing a poor job of explaining it, but it's just like a lot of times he doesn't have captions, uh, and and to me as a lazy cartoonist, like minimal line work, no words. I was like that's chef's kiss. Like I wish I could have as much brevity, and that's sort of what I always personally strive for. And comedic, uh, I don't know about directly, but like I know in college, like my favorite show of all time, Community is like
Oh,
that was
very
sort of the
good.
one that like took me from like being a TV viewer to being like, how is this made? How do they create a show that is this funny? And so, um, yeah, I don't know about
Yeah.
direct comparisons, but like that's what I think of when I think of like the first thing that really made me like think I want to try and be funny in some sense, in some way. I don't know how, but I'd love to strive for it.
Yeah. I when I think of comedy and I think of like cartoons together, obviously I think of cartoonists and of comic strips, but I also think of Dimitri Martin. He's like the first
Oh,
person that comes to
he's
mind.
amazing. Yeah.
And he was such a my boyfriend and I were talking about like, who we're not I want to make it very clear like we're not comedians and I would not ever consider myself a comedian. However, I was a comedy nerd and that's
Oh
my
yeah.
its own pathetic past. But
Not at
God,
all.
the the way that like some comedians really shape you, like Mitch Hedberg,
Hmm.
where you're just like, I wish I could be that funny. And I feel like in the same vein, it's people like Charles Schultz
Hmm.
and other comedy writers that make cartoons that have just as deep an impact because it's like beat you have to be so clear with like where your comedy is coming from and what the
Hmm.
punchline is.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Love Dimitri. I haven't watched his stuff in a while, but like thinking back to like one of his early specials where like he's doing the graphs, like this is a pie chart of a whatever, and this is a bar chart of pies or something like that. It's like his stuff is so visual too. A lot of the time, it's great.
The Dimitri Martin show that he had, Real Things with Dimitri Martin, I think it was called, is like a show that I think people did not appreciate at the time. Important Things with
Hmm.
Dimitri Martin.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
That is really just a fantastic like uh, showcase of his abilities and his thinking that went under the radar in 2008, 2009,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
sadly. What I was also thinking about when we were talking is there's a really funny, I will send it to you once we're done podcasting here,
Please.
video of Pete Holmes used to have a late night TV show after Conan,
Hmm.
called The Pete Holmes Show. And he would pitch, he had done New Yorker cartoons, and he has a whole video
Yes.
where
Oh
he
yeah.
pitches his rejected cartoons to Bob Mankoff.
Hmm.
And that video is so funny, and I think a great way, we're talking about cartooning, but another great insight into like what sells, what doesn't work as a
Yeah.
joke. I love that
I,
video so much.
yeah. I honestly forgot Pete Holmes. Yeah. He is I can't remember the punchline, but it's like two people sitting on a Porsche. I think they're in like upstate. I don't know, but he's got a very funny cartoon that I can't recall at the moment. Who else? Zach Kanan, a co-creator of I Think You Should Leave,
Hmm.
also does cartoons for the New Yorker,
Wow.
and they're very funny. So if you can check out some of his cartoons, also his show, clearly a very funny man.
It's like not fair, like to also
Yeah,
like
some
just be
people
like
have
an
it all.
actual, I'm gonna be on camera and act
Yeah.
comedian and then be funny enough to draw to. Um,
Mhm.
so Evan, when you are creating, what are you physically using? What's the medium you're using to create your art?
I draw on an iPad now. So
Ooh.
it's in a program called Procreate, and there's like it's a very like there's so much stuff you can do in it. I think you can like animate in it now, but I use like 3 brushes, like a pencil, a pen, and like a watercolor brush, and that's all I know. That's all I'm not going to change it up. I've tried. I just I know what works for me, but I actually started out on like pencil and paper um, before I got this iPad, and so I draw pencil, and then like I didn't have like nice pens or anything to ink it, so I would
Right.
like take a picture of it on my phone, and then I would go into they have a light version. So I'd be on my phone and I'd be like going over lines and like erasing stuff and like cleaning it up a little. And I sold a couple. I sold probably the first 2 or 3 that way. Don't recommend that for anyone,
So
but
insane.
it was a $5 app, and then I paid $15 for the iPad version.
Once you realize that it was, what,
Yeah.
this is this is a tax
Yeah.
write-off. Here we
Hmm.
go. There's a Instagram artist who I don't know how to explain what this person does, but they just draw cats, and they've named all of their cats, and it's this very distinct art style.
Okay.
And she was posting, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I've drawn all of these on my phone." And I was like,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
people just adapt in the most fascinating ways of producing art, where I can't judge it because it gets the job done, or the art looks good,
Oh yeah.
and it's just like harder for you in some ways, or the
Yeah.
creator. What
It
is
was pretty
their
tedious. I wouldn't go back into it.
I'm like, I can't remember what their name is. I'll find it, but they like make little have you ever seen a photo an art of a cat like pushing a little shopping cart, and she's shopping for groceries?
I don't think I
Damn.
have. I don't know. Maybe I've seen it. If you send it
Describing
to me.
cartoons is also
Yes, it's like describing. It's like trying to explain a YouTube video to a friend. Like, oh, you gotta watch this one.
I used to, when I was a kid, read comic strips to my parents
Mhm.
from the back seat of the car. So I would just
I'm sure
read.
they loved that.
Loved it. That's when you know that my parents like frankly loved me too much and did
Yeah.
not tell me to like stop. Going back to your actual physical create, or creating the art. Um, I was curious because a lot of what you do is in black and white, but then
Mhm.
you do have some color. You have some amazing album artwork that's in color. Uh, Drawing is one thing. Coloring is a whole other like ball game and element of I think artwork that takes a lot of time to get good at and practice. So what was it like working in color versus black and white, and uh, how did you adapt to it?
Immensely stressful because it is out of the norm for me. Like, um, if I do client work, I work with businesses. Sometimes I'll draw stuff for them. If it's something they want, I'm up for it. But yeah, it's for me. It's like that is part of like as an avenue of learning for me. So that's sort of how I try to approach those projects. So like um, just view it as a time to experiment, play around with different brushes in Procreate, different like sort of like digital versions of different mediums, and so I've had to learn a little bit, and for me, that's an area where I could definitely continue pushing myself to sort of continue learning a little bit. I have a buddy of mine who like has also really gotten into drawing in the past couple of years, and he's very studious about it. And he'll
Mm.
be sending me all this like color theory stuff, and he's like, "You should check this out. You should try this. You should watch this YouTube video." And again, me being a lazy cartoonist, I'm like, I'm gonna get to that. But then as soon as a client project comes up, I'm like, "Oh, send me that video again, please." It does change how you sort of have to view something. Like you have to think about like the ambience the colors create, like the sort of like there's the color wheel, and there's all these different, I don't know, it's something I'm less well versed in, but
Mhm.
it's fun to play around with.
Yes, I watch a lot of. I've been watching this TikTok artist who's like a Disney animator, and she will critique people's works. I love those videos of breaking down like size and proportion, all these things that are so
Hmm.
integral to like the shape of a design. But I think a lot of people are losing focus on color and how it makes you feel. But that's also in some ways the beauty of the New Yorker, where it's so simple and
Hmm.
it's so just here you go. This is like black and white on a page. Don't even need to think about it.
Hmm.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and that is one thing I like about drawing for the New Yorker is cartooning specifically. You don't really need to be like uh, technically proficient. It helps. Like there are some amazing artists that can like draw and like render in almost like pretty realistic or like true to life. But there's also very abstract artists. Leanna Fink is one of their most well-known ones, and she has these like sort of like scribbly line figures and like super abstract, but like um, it's just like a lot of times it's the strength of the writing. Not to knock anyone's drawing, but it's like uh, when like a really abstract cartoonist has like a really unique voice, it always comes out to the
Mhm.
like the voice and their sense of humor, and that's what shines through in cartooning specifically. And you don't always need to be like, I don't know, a professional, you know,
Mhm.
comic book artist.
Yeah, you don't need to be able to like ink the whole thing yourself and
Yeah.
give Stanley a run for his money.
Yeah.
Certainly. Do you think you have signatures or signature elements to the art that you do?
Um, my style has evolved a little bit since I started, and it's me sort of getting a little bit better at drawing, me trying to fold in influences from artists I look up to. Uh, for me, like cartooning is always an exercise in like kind of shorthand. So whether that's like verbal or like written or um, drawn. And so a lot of times I'll like reference, like I do a lot of looking at just the New Yorker's archive of cartoons. And sometimes I'll be like, how do I draw a tree? I don't know. I don't have like a way I draw a tree. So I'll like flip through some cartoons. I'm like, okay, that, and I'll like fold some of those in. But when I started out, I was drawing noses. They were sort of like these people, the humans had like circle heads and they had like a little carrot shaped nose. And I was like, that'll be my thing. That'll be my calling card. And like my second or third batch in, the editor was like, why don't you try drawing the noses like a nose? And I was like, okay.
Tone it
Like,
down, buddy.
swallowed my pride a little bit. I was like, not ready to die on that hill. Okay, note taken. So,
Got it.
yeah, I don't know. I try to sort of, not necessarily in like the way I ink them, but like in the line work, I try to emulate a more classic like Sean Day or like some of those older cartoonists. Whether I do a good job of that or not, I don't know, but like that's what I'm going for personally.
And then when you have to draw like Godzilla, for example, what are you pulling from?
Google image search. Yeah.
Do you believe in tracing, or are you like, I'm going to try and freehand this and see what I can come up with? You don't have to reveal all your secrets. Okay.
Yeah, no. I freehand it unless I'm trying to do like if I'm like illustrating something. Like I did my friends and I had a D&D group, and for Christmas we wanted to give our dungeon master like something nice because we're doing like a Secret Santa or whatever. So like I drew all of our characters around him and like had his hands holding the world or whatever. I was like, okay. And I was trying to do it like, so I like took a picture of my hands and kind of traced that. But generally for my cartoon work, no, it's all like pretty loose and, freehand stuff.
So for the New Yorker, obviously there are a couple of different cartoon elements, because there's like what I always thought of as like the silent cartoons, where there's just no words. I mean, they're just drawings, but they might have like they're silent because they still have a joke to them sometimes. There's the regular cartoon, and then there's art that might be associated with an article, or the blank, the fill it, like the caption contest. So I'm wondering if you can walk me through any of them. Obviously, we talked a lot about the main form of cartooning. Have you done any of the others? Have you had an opportunity to contribute in that side of things?
So I've only really done the single panel cartoons. I feel like I may have sold at least one or two just like purely visual gags. I'd have to look back through them. But the caption contests, I think, generally come from. I think the editor will pull them out. Like if you're pitching them and it doesn't necessarily work for the magazine, they might pluck it. If it's like, usually they're kind of wacky or whatever. There's like something about them that's that's like interesting visually, and so they'll like pluck it out of someone's batch and say like, hey, you get. I don't know. I don't think it's the same, right? But like,
can we erase your work? And
like, your caption's not good enough. We're gonna throw it to the masses. But no, usually those come from someone's like batch that they're already pitching. So no, I haven't had the opportunity to do that. I haven't, I guess, written any jokes not well or well enough for that. That'd be really cool though. It is also it is just. I think that's like a testament to people who make really fun visual like cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, I think you also have some fun concepts. I really loved the one you did where it was that God made a freestyle Coke machine on the 8th day.
I love I don't know why. Like that tickles me to no end. I love going to a movie theater or like Five Guys. They have Coke freestyle machines. It's a technological marvel to me. Like that's like the invention of the light bulb to my own existence in the technological spectrum or whatever. I don't know. I just love them.
Yeah, there's a TikTok of like a European kid like experiencing it for the first time, and you can just see he's like completely overwhelmed. You're like, yeah, this is America. This is how we do it.
American gluttony at its finest.
When it comes to the New Yorker, you've had some very big moments. I think specifically when Mr. X found one of your
Yeah.
cartoons. What is that experience like when somebody finds your art and it hits just a massive platform? By
That
Mr. X, I mean Elon Musk.
Yeah, that was crazy because I didn't know that had happened because I blocked Elon Musk on his own platform.
I
I
did
just
too. Let's
I
go.
fundamentally don't agree with him as a person, and that's fine. I'm still using his product. I'm like, we live in a society. Like, I'm not. What am I going to do? But a friend of mine, had DM'd it to me like, "Hey, did you see this?" And I was like, "I hadn't. Thank you. That's interesting." And obviously it's like it's a rush of emotions. It's like, what's going on? But also Elon Musk, in a very Elon Musk move, crops out I think he cropped out my signature. So it's not like I'm whatever. The moment was fun for what it was, and then it was also very interesting just to see like the variety of reactions. I don't personally love Elon Musk. My dad is a huge Elon Musk fan, so he's like, "That's so cool." I was like, "Is it?" And or friends being like, "He's the Rockefeller of our time," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't
I don't
know."
think that makes him any better, I
Yeah,
have to say, but
so
okay.
it's a fun story to tell, but it's also very funny because the one he had retweeted was about people saying, like, people who just like snooty people who say Kafkaesque or Orwellian all the time. And he said, and he like retweeted it and said, "I say those all the time." And the one, I think that's funny because it, like, does he get the joke? I don't know. Maybe he does. But two, I think that does, as much as I rag on and don't like Elon Musk, is like an element of why people like the New Yorker is like there is that capacity to sort of laugh at oneself, like the kind of
Mm,
person like kind of poke, like New Yorker cartoons poke fun at the kind of person that reads the New Yorker, which I think
yes.
still holds pretty true. Which, so
Yeah.
I think I did okay to
I
that
mean, I think
extent.
that the New Yorker is I've always interpreted it as like, hey, it's called the New Yorker and we're gonna make fun of New Yorkers and I as a New Yorker, I'm like, go ahead, take me down. Like I deserve it.
Yeah,
We all need this. It
yeah,
almost reminds me of like sometimes very John Oliver in a way where it's like, yes, we know who our audience is, and we're also going to make fun of you. Stay tuned.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. It's we're all in on the joke, and we're all sort of poking fun at ourselves. Um, and like, even we were talking a little bit before we started recording this, like you were saying, you used to read the New
Hmm.
Yorker issues and just,
Strictly for the comics.
yeah. And I'll be honest, like I sold my first cartoon, got a subscription, and I made it about like 2 weeks of like trying to read a couple articles every issue, and then they just started stacking up, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, whatever. And then I just went digital because I don't need, I don't want to be recycling tons of paper. So, and I really just look at the cartoons. Yeah, unfortunately. Great
They're just
reporting. Great reporting.
yes, yes, they're just that good.
Hmm.
That's so funny. When you're getting a massive influx of attention like that, what did you find any sort of positives or negatives? Was it just like I've seen some people I know who have gone viral, whether it's like straight up through Elon Musk or in general on the internet, something is huge. And I'm curious, as you are an artist, you're not only just a person who's like, I'm posting online to post online. You are an artist where like part of your career is being a very visible person creating art. Did you see anything change, or was it like, oh, I got like 5 followers and a bunch of weird comments from a bunch of blue check marks?
Pretty much the latter. But I've had a couple like moments like that, not to that scale, but
Right.
moments like that before, and uh, like being an artist online on Instagram, on social media or whatever, is sort of this weird performative thing, and it's um, something I have like my care slash attention or attention to it wanes every now and then, but I like I try to keep a pretty level head because people can get super into social media and be like, if I really want to, like, I try to be disciplined about posting my cartoons, but I also it's also kind of a funny thing to me. Like I also just post myself, like me living my life, and I'll never forget. Like I had a buddy's bachelor party a couple years ago, and we did like a pig roast, and I shared a couple pictures, and like I had this huge downward spike in followers, and I was like, oh, my followers did not like that, and like to this day haven't really recovered or like gone beyond that point. And so it's just like this, I don't know, it's an entertaining, it kind of amuses me. So like I try to treat my work with respect it deserves, but like the platform itself is like an area for me to play, um and like joke around with, like
Mm.
you know, like if you follow social media best practices, you should be like telling your story or like introducing people in your captions and saying, "Hi, I'm Evan Lian. I'm cartoons for the New Yorker." Every so often,
Yeah.
or
For those of
actually,
you who are new here, oh
yeah,
my God. I
and
just saw a TikTok that was like, people don't talk like that. Stop talking to me like that.
yeah,
Yep,
and
I
so like
agree.
my version of that was like I posted like a steak that I cooked over the summer. I'm like, "Hey, if you're new here, I'm the meat guy. That's who follow me for more meats." Like I don't know. Whether that's severely hindering my career, whatever. It's fun.
Oh, my boyfriend experienced the same thing where he posted for his birthday, his own birthday, and it wasn't a VFX video, and he like dipped in followers.
Yeah.
It's so rude. People are so
Yeah.
rude.
And you know what? Uh I don't know. It makes me like uh, have to take a step back and look at my own work, and like, so there are times where I like really do want to focus on cartooning. I have to be more uh uh diligent about like when I draw, and all that. And like, I don't know. I have like it makes you like sort of step outside of, or step back from yourself and take a mile high view or whatever, and sort of examine it.
Mhm.
And so it's not just like the work itself sometimes.
Well, not only do you have like the digital realm, but you also can have the physical realm of art. Have you experienced that side of printmaking and mass producing your art? Do you find that it's something you liked pursuing, or that you tried it once and you said never mind, no thanks?
Yeah, I actually on occasion I'll do like an art festival or an art show. There's one locally called DIY Fest. Local artisans, makers, and people making their own soaps and cutting boards and all that kind of stuff. And so like I applied to it because it's a big show in our area, and I was like, hey, this is kind of a unique thing. There's other artists there too, and um, it was like there are people that do these shows like religiously, like year round. That's how they make their
Mhm.
living. They go travel the state or the country, doing shows every weekend, and I do like one a year, and I'm maxed out. But it's like it's so interesting because New Yorker cartoons is a medium where you don't really interact with people. There is an interaction, but it's like displaced by time and space. But like seeing people react to my stuff, in the immediate was new and exciting, also even more intensely terrifying. But it's so rewarding. And like there was a cartoon that I published in a different publication, and I only really thought to pitch it because without fail, people would, like my first show, people would come into the tent, and I had it tucked in the corner, like the up high, just because it was a little more risque joke, a little more
Keep it
like
away from the
raunchy
kids.
humor. Yeah, yeah. But like everyone would, their eyes would sort of travel up. They'd chuckle. They'd like tap their friend. They'd point at that and laugh, or tap their friend or girlfriend or whatever. And I was like, oh man, people are really getting a kick out of this. And so I pitched it somewhere else, and it got picked up, which is pretty neat. And that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been in a place where people were like examining my work in the
Wow.
physical.
Yeah, the immediate feedback is
It's cool.
It's cool. Of course, it's a little scary, but I think in a lot of ways, that's being an artist, right? Is what we talked about of rejection, and
Hmm.
you're building up your immunity to it in some ways. Do you have a favorite cartoon that you've printed, or a favorite piece that you've put out there that you feel like you really uh, encapsulates what this journey has been? Of like, yeah, I draw cartoons, and that's something I'm really proud of.
Oh, that encapsulates the experience.
Just in the not the actual content of the
Okay.
cartoon, but the hey, look, like I made this. You know, what's that meme that's like I made this?
Yeah. If I had to like boil it all down to one cartoon, I honestly think I would go back to the first cartoon I sold to the New Yorker.
Mm.
It's like there's like the lab rat trope, scientists around a little maze or whatever, and so the first cartoon I ever sold to them was uh, like a father rat and then a kid rat, and he's saying like, sorry kiddo, like I have to go to work so you can go to the best drug trials in the country. uh and the kid's got like a baseball glove on or whatever. And I don't know, like a lot of my cartoons since that I've sold and just in general have sort of come down to like the depressing, like I don't know how to phrase it, but like just like the futility of work and like us having to go to work and like that whole aspect, and now it's become like extra applicable in my own life as a like
Mm.
as a new parent. Yeah, so I think it all goes back to that one cartoon. um yeah, that
Yeah.
sort of set me on this path.
Wow, that's really I can't wait to like actually see that. But that's really funny. Did you have a least favorite trope or a favorite? You're talking about sort of cartoon tropes, and I can think of a million. You know, it's not even just tropes, but like there's like classic comedy duos, right? Like a lot of what
Hmm.
our art is built on is repetition of the same similar concepts, and that doesn't make it any less funny to be the millionth person who's done an angry guy and a funny stupid guy. It's
Hmm.
still funny.
Yeah.
So do you have any least favorite or favorite tropes that you use,
um
or that you're inspired by, I should say?
I think I'll say not my least. Well, yeah, maybe I guess least favorite in that like I'd never really choose to do it. I live in Michigan. I'm not a New Yorker. Although I was born there. I was born
Right.
in New York, moved to the Midwest as an infant. But um, any train commute tunes, I just don't. I cannot. I can imagine. Like I can't write good jokes about that. Um, I it just like it's very forced for me, and I don't think they're good or inventive, or I don't really know like the really nitty gritty gripes. So I don't think I can do those very
Yeah.
well.
I'll
Um,
anytime I have a commute gripe from now on, I'll DM you and I'll share my experience so that you can feel more
please, yeah, please.
Just kidding. I don't commute anymore.
I would say the other one, actually, this one, it's not my least favorite. I still attempt it pretty
Yes.
often, and it's not really. It's more of a topic than a trope, but like in the era of Trump, like I'm just not that politically savvy to be like, so I was not, I would try daily cartoons and pitching like current events related stuff, but like I just don't, I'm not like that whip smart when it comes to political humor. And so I didn't have, I think there was a lot of inspiration in, that 4 years, that presidency,
Yeah.
but I just like I couldn't come up with anything good or even close to as good as what they obviously published in that time.
Yeah, I also think that political cartoons, are its own arena to begin with, right? That,
Hmm.
there's already a style that people recognize when it comes to political cartoons, which is truly the art of unsubtlety. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and
wow,
I
we
would
just said, yeah, that's a perfect art form and it should never change.
Yeah. I guess if I had to say least favorite like form of cartooning is
Yeah.
like that stereotypical, which the New Yorker doesn't really do, but the
Yes.
stereotypical political gag cartoon that's like a caricature of whatever, the president, a caricature of whatever
Yeah,
other
like the
foreign
donkey
leader,
and then
and
yeah,
the
foreign
donkey's
lead.
labeled, and like there's a ship that's labeled China, and then like this is the economy, and like very unsubtle stuff. Not my cup of tea. I
Did you
don't
ever
like
take
that.
like I think I remember in an AP US history class, one time we had to analyze a political cartoon from like 1800 or like early 1900s of
Mm,
like what is this about? And I was just like, I don't know. Like I
yeah,
didn't
no,
live
I don't
this.
know the context. Yeah.
Yeah, I just losing my mind. And then I was like, it's always like the sinking of the
Yeah.
Lusitania, and you're like,
So,
whatever,
yeah.
man, we get it. It sunk.
I don't want to knock anyone who does that, but I don't love them.
Yeah, I think it's just such a wild art style and not particularly the
Yeah.
comedy that I enjoy. But I also, from your perspective, for like making for the New Yorker, I think drawing world leaders is always like you have to have, especially drawing just famous people in general, right? You really have to have that like recognition of face, and
Hmm.
anybody who looks at it can know immediately, like, oh, that's so and so. A
Yeah.
very difficult thing that I feel like is sometimes a little too creatively
S-
stifling to want to keep doing.
Super difficult. One of my earlier, like more well-known cartoons was not even really a caricature. It was just like an attempt at drawing Greta Thunberg. Looks nothing like her. Looks absolutely nothing like her. I just had to like say this is Greta Thunberg. But I've only there's only been a handful of instances where I've like sort of tried to caricature or like draw famous or political people. But I guess if you go back to an earlier
Yeah.
question, uh, uh, of like if I have like a signature thing, and I think when I look at my body of work, a lot of, and this maybe ties into the like the futility of life and working and like the pointlessness of it all. Not it, I'm doing okay. I'm just,
We're all good. We're all good.
yeah, just the hamster on a wheel of it all. Um, I would say a lot of my most of the time I start with drawing like just blank expressions on people in different scenarios, and like you know if it calls for it, I'll have like an expressive character with like eyebrows, but generally I don't, because it's sort of like the blank reaction to it is sort of like my perspective of just like what the observer, in a sense,
Yeah.
reacting to the absurd. I don't know.
Like life is absurd.
Mhm.
Don't. Okay, don't get. Wow, I'm feeling very Kafka-esque today. No, I did actually. I did pick up. I was at Barnes and Noble 2 days ago, and I had been thinking to myself for a while, like I didn't really read Kafka. It's just something
That
that
yeah,
filmmakers cite is like a big inspiration, and
that was the
yeah,
inspiration for that cartoon, is like, and it even goes beyond that. It's like reading Kafka, specifically the Gregor Samsa one, and so I like, I've seen other cartoonists riff on it. I was like, I should probably read that short story, and it's in a collection of short stories.
yeah,
Didn't finish the rest, but just like uh, not understanding sometimes the references and just like nodding along, like that's the perspective like that's where that cartoon sort of came from. And a lot of times people, um like more specific to the cartooning realm, will be like, you got to check out, like, oh, you must love the Far Side, you must love Gary Larson. And I've like seen some of it, but I'm not like super familiar with his work, never read any of the like collections or flipped through it, and I'm just like, yeah, heard he's good. Like, and I what I've seen is great. I just like have not come around to digging into it.
there's a child to raise, and all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
things.
yeah. I'll
No,
start there. It's at the top of my list, but
right. There was a Kafka um, challenge in The Amazing Race. I think it was a
oh,
roadblock where they had to
I'd
like
be
pick up.
out.
They had to like pick up phones. It wasn't that it was about Kafka, but that it was a room full of ringing phones. This always stood out to me in my head too, of like, it's a room full of ringing phones and you just have to answer them and try and find like the passcode to get out of the room. But I thought that was so funny, of like, yeah, you know what we should do in The Amazing Race? A Kafka challenge. Yeah,
that'll
that's what
get the people going.
that's what we're missing.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask for you, because you have your wonderful podcast with Alex, Two Dudes Watch Cartoons. Where does being a fan and appreciator of cartoons and movies and TV come into making your own cartoons? Because I think that of course, animation is a much different beast and tells a different story in a lot of ways. But at the same time, what is animation but lots and lots of little drawings? And there's so much that comes into artwork before it becomes a full-fledged movie. So what are you inspired by in the animation world, and how have you grown as like an appreciator of animation through your podcast with Alex?
Yeah. One, just have loved anime. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm a stunted adult. I just like love watching cartoons. But there were a handful of really like profound cartoons, like more recent ones like Adventure Time and Steven Universe, that have sort of like led a renaissance of like what people think of as like kids cartoons or kids shows recently. And I'm super appreciative of those, but it's just like the first thing I ever wanted to be when I was little, like as an adult, was like, a cartoonist. Like, I loved not the kind that I am now, but like an animator.
Yeah.
I loved Looney Tunes. I loved Tom and Jerry. And that, like, I mean, probably more so nowadays, like some of those early like are so much better animated than like a lot of stuff we have today, just because studios won't invest in that like quality of animation. I love the Fleischer Brothers Superman cartoons. And so doing the podcast, one is just a great way to keep in touch with my old friend Alex. We've been friends for like the half our lives at this point, and he lives in Arizona. So it's a great way to keep in touch with him, but two, it's also been a great way to sort of like, I don't know, it like taps into a little bit of nostalgia, and it's like this avenue, because we get a bunch of our friends who like DM us about the podcast. I'm like, oh, we were watching this, and we'll like engage with us and talk with, like, it just opens up this avenue of like almost vulnerability in a way, of like people that, we're all in a rush to grow up very quick. And I think it's nice to, take a step back and just like, I don't nerd out about some stuff and like really talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender and why it's so freaking cool. I don't know. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I also think, especially now that you are your dad, that cartoons had such a profound impact on teaching us things. I think the same for comics. I think I absorbed a lot of like humor and references through comics that I didn't fully understand, and then I would read them back and get them all of a sudden. But just, is Coco Melon as influential visually and content wise as like Arthur? I don't think so.
I think
we're all
we were
still scared
very spoiled with Arthur. I'm really excited. I've heard great things about Bluey, which is a more recent Disney kids show. So I'm excited to, in a couple of years, maybe dig into that with my son.
Yeah, you're primed for it, right? You're like, yes, I can watch this with my son. I see people where they're like, oh yeah, I just watched Bluey. It's like, at least with a dog they'll watch it, but I'm like, I have nothing, so I can't just be like, yeah, I watched Bluey the other day.
You can.
It's a little too. I'll need to like have a niece or something, and then I'll start watching. We'll
for sure.
What would you say is something you appreciate now about animation and cartoons that has come from the podcast and come from viewing so many pieces of media. I mean, how many episodes have you done at this point? It's like quite a lot.
7. We're around 70, somewhere in that ballpark. One, I think we were kind of, people our age, Gen Z millennials, a little bit spoiled. Like we just all time, like the stuff that was coming around the 90s, 2000s, like awesome, like Pixar, all that, all the like the classic Disney animated, like Lion King, all that stuff is super great. But I've also come to appreciate, like, even for like a big commercial studio like Disney, like they've made way into telling like different types of stories, whether they're hit or miss, like they're trying to evolve in some way. And so, like, I think one of the greatest moments that I've experienced having this podcast was Guillermo del Toro winning Best Animated Feature for Pinocchio last year, which is a beautiful, beautiful film.
Yeah.
Really profound. And it's like sort of, and his whole thing is like animation is a medium. It's not children's stuff. It's not a genre. It's a medium. It is cinema. And that's sort of been like the mission statement of the pod to begin with, except articulated much more eloquently. But it's like there's so much to appreciate in like whatever you're watching, even if it's like an old dud, like whether it's the nostalgia revisit, like there is so much you can like that I think people often close themselves off to, or just out of not wanting to like be watching cartoons, because it's kiddie.
Yeah. And it's such a hard, I mean, what it's like to create one piece of art for one frame for, this is all you need to see. The fact that so much of the medium was done hand drawn, hand painted for a long time, and sort of switched over to computers much later on is like it's if you watch those videos of like Steven Hillenberger like drawing SpongeBob and the way that people can just draw. No questions. You're talking about repeatability. Where they're like, yeah, I can draw this character a million times.
Yeah,
what?
It's crazy. Yeah, I can't think of what it's called, but I feel like there's like a documentary about sort of the early Studio Ghibli days and like the intensive process of like how there's like sort of an animation test that they would have to pass, and they would have to draw a character swinging like a sledgehammer or something, and just all the intricacies of like it's not just like the arms moving, but it's the exaggeration of the body movement and all this and that, and like the movement in it that you sort of have to capture. And sometimes that's like something I try and remember. I'm pretty lazy with my drawing, but like but sometimes like I feel like I do need to sort of approach a cartoon or an illustration with that like sense of movement, because it is sort of, cartoons can feel just like two figures standing, and creating a little bit of movement can add a little bit of visual interest.
Yeah.
So that's that's something I try to pull, I guess, from watching animation all the time.
Do you have a favorite thing to draw? I know that sounds like kind of vague, but like,
oh yeah,
but you're like excited to draw something.
Yeah,
if it's in your
it's
idea.
Batman. My favorite thing to draw. It's so stupid, but I love drawing Batman. Like when I'm stuck, I'll just like draw Batman, and I don't know, it doesn't get me much further, but I'll try and write a Batman joke about something. They're not great, but
I'll have to find it, but I was going to go to a Halloween party that was like, I got sick and I couldn't go. That was supposed to be Christopher Nolan puns. And so I wanted to be a Batman, like a Batman Pikmin. And I drew Batman Pikmin.
That's very cool.
That like, and I'm always impressed that I can draw one thing and be like, great, that was enough doodling for a year. Like
yeah.
I did enough art to satisfy.
I get stressed out by anything beyond just two characters talking. If I have to draw the background or like the room they're in, I'm like, maybe I won't draw it. Maybe I won't pitch this joke. Like,
oh, no, not the
I weed out
of a wall.
pitches by like the amount of work I think they might take.
Oh man, you can get really like artsy and vague with it, or very cubist, right? Like just change everything. Who cares about the structure of the the
Yeah,
floor
I mean,
plan.
and this, I mean, there's like a happy medium of like me being minimalist for like laziness sake, and me like, but there are times where I do try and think about like, and not just in a lazy way, like what's the quickest way for me to communicate this in like the least amount of lines, or the most minimal amount of line work, like drawing a random tree, or like implying that they're in a room or in a cave, or like what have you. Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
I just love minimalism.
Have you ever like tried to stretch like is it okay, today I'm going to try and draw a cityscape because like I want to. Are you ever testing yourself with like let's try X today?
Yeah. So I did some album artwork for Jarrell Jerome. He's got like a rap EP or series of EPs that have come out, and there's a series of 4 illustrations. And the first one, uh, like he had these corresponding music videos, and it was set in like a bodega. And I was like, let me draw this scene, because we were going for um, like alluding to New Yorker magazine covers, and like the New Yorker, and that sense of whimsy with the illustrations. And I was like, okay, let me just illustrate the world he's in this music
Yeah.
video. And it's in a little bodega. And it's like, so I have this like bird's eye view of all these characters in the bodega. I have stuff on the shelves individually drawn, like naming little brands of like cheese puffs or whatever. And it was excruciating. It was an excruciating amount of detail. It's probably the most detail I've ever like put into a piece of work, but it was challenging. Was it fun? I don't know, but like it was like a worthwhile like creative challenge for me.
Yeah. Just because it wasn't fun doesn't mean it can't be rewarding, you know?
Yes,
It can
exactly.
still suck a little bit. Yeah, I love those visuals. They remind me a lot of, and I say this in a very positive way that New York City will commission artists to. There's often like a drawing or a print on the subway, evoking either the city or the subway or what it feels like to be kind of a commuter on the train. And I thought that your work reminded me a lot of those pieces that I see pretty much when, especially the 4, 5, 6 train. Anybody knows you see them like there's like a one of the subway lines playing baseball against each other. But it reminded me of that, and I thought it was
Thank
such
you.
a good moment to capture. And I
Yeah.
like that he was inspired to ask you to do that.
Hmm.
It was good.
Yeah, it was honestly the most amazing opportunity I may ever have, like, drawing cartoons. And I thought I was being scammed at first, because when someone DMs you and they're
Yes.
like, "Hi, I'm working with this artist with Sony Records," I'm like, "Okay, yeah, get out of
Yeah.
here."
Move to general, get it
Yeah.
out of the priority folder. Have you ever had any of those like crazy asks where people are like, "Hi, I have no money, but could you please draw my entire family?"
Not necessarily crazy, but I have recently, I almost got duped by like a scam, and then I was like, why
Uh,
are they asking for cashier's checks? That's a red flag. But I've sort of moved away a little bit from doing like personal commissions, because it can become a lot of that, or like draw me in this very specific place. I'm like, that's so stressful. Like, what?
I don't want
What?
to draw the
I draw
specific place.
I make funnies. I don't draw like architecture. Uh, but yeah, no, nothing too outlandish.
Yeah.
Every now and, or like at the art fairs, especially, I'd have people be like, "You get like, you should draw this cartoon. I got a great idea." And like, this is, any cartoonist will tell you, like, they always get hit up with like, "I got a great idea for a cartoon," and like, and when you're, you know, in like in front of this person, it's a little, you have to be very polite, but it's like, oh yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, put
Cool.
it in the suggestion box.
Yes, yeah, put it in the queue.
Are there artists, whether they're your contemporaries, your coworkers, that are making cartoons right now that you are, inspired by or appreciate the work that they're doing these days?
Yeah, a good friend of mine, Madeline Horwath, just, I don't know how to describe their work. Just outlandish. Uh, out of left field. It's I, bizarre is not the right word, but just like so not like what you think of. I mean, it is in a way, but it's just like a lot of when you think of New Yorker cartoons, you think of like people trying to be clever and like what's a really funny cartoon, and their cartoons are super funny, but it's like it's in how they articulate their experiences. I almost feel like it's a little more raw or like grungy in a way, but still in the New Yorker aesthetic. I really love their stuff. Zoe C is a cartoonist. I think she's based in Vancouver, and was also up for like a Nobel, or maybe it was a Pulitzer. I don't know, some big award. And she does really great work. There are tons of them. I can't, any of my New Yorker contemporaries are amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess just lastly, is there anything as of late whose production value you've been admiring? Any work at all that you've been respecting how much time and creative input is going into it?
Let me try and think of. I'm really like, I spend too much time on TikTok, and I'm firmly down the rabbit hole of like food cooking TikToks.
Ooh.
And there are a handful of creators that I really love. Cabbages.world is this couple. I think they live in New York. They do like a lot of Japanese cuisine or Japanese inspired cuisine that you can make at home, but they also do, if you like click their link in bio, they have a really well designed, like they do all the recipes, and it's really well designed on these one pagers that have the steps and like little, just like little images of like the ingredients you'll need. And it's like this perfect little one pager. It's just like so well thought out. They did like a gift guide for like the holidays of just like stuff you can get your friends if they're really into cooking. And it's like this really beautiful, well designed gift guide that has the images, and you can click into it. And also all their food looks amazing to eat. So yeah, I would say them. They're probably my favorite watch right now.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love people who are creative and really self fueling their creativity. Right, I'm here to make myself be known, and there's a lot of vain people on TikTok, but there's a lot of genuine artists who are working really hard, and I think that sometimes they get drowned out.
Yeah, well, I think what's cool is like they're not like food professionals. I think they're like graphic designers by trade, and you can tell by like the website that they've built for themselves. I don't know, it's really neat.
You can. I mean, that's, I think, a testament to where you came from in your career, where you weren't doing cartoons, but you don't have to go. I love what you said. I think you said in your interview, you said like cartoon school, which is such a funny idea to me. Of like,
I don't know. I thought maybe it was a real thing.
I mean, there's like CalArts, there's like animation school, but not. I don't know if there's cartoons. But where you don't go to cartoon school, you don't go to learn certain trades. You can go to culinary school, or you can just learn and grow and expand your knowledge. And I think that's very similar to what you've done, where you've taken what was always like a hobby and passion and turned it into something where you're really getting to enjoy it and work at it professionally as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this goes back to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning of like people being hesitant to like state that they are a thing. And I operated from that same, vantage point of insecurity when I was starting out. But like for a lot of these things, unless you need a license to be like practicing law or like medicine, like for most creative stuff, it's like, are you doing the work? For me, a lot of times, like that is what drives me, is like, I haven't pitched a ton in the past year or two. And so sometimes like when I start seeing a bunch of cartoons I admire, and I start feeling like I'm slacking a little, I like ask myself, like, am I really going to call myself a cartoonist when I haven't been? I better start. And so that sort of kicks me into gear. But like, there's no gatekeeper. I mean, people will think they're like maybe social media or like whatever, but like for actually doing the stuff that you love, pursuing whatever your creative avenue is, do it. Like, even if it's just for yourself, it doesn't have to be for external validation.
Yes, it doesn't have to be for Instagram followers. And if they unfollow you because you post a ham, if you post a pig, screw them. They were never a true fan.
They were never bought into me to begin with.
Oh my gosh. Evan, thank you so much for being here. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And for if anybody wants to go back, I was on an episode of Two Dudes Watch Cartoons where we talked about Fern Gully, and I love that you guys let me make that choice.
You're welcome back anytime. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast talking with you about cartoons. It's so nice to just chat with other people who appreciate this kind of stuff.
Of course. Well, I just want to say for anyone listening that in the description of the podcast or the YouTube video, I have linked everything, Evan, that you have going on. I've also linked the video I was talking about with Pete Holmes because I want more people to watch that 10 years down the line. And in case you aren't already following me, I am at Naomi Calhoun on X/Twitter. Evan, where can people locate you to follow you and see what you're up to making?
You can find me at Evan Lian _. I post mostly on Instagram. That's where you'll find all my work. But you can also follow my podcast that Naomi was on at Two Dudes Watch Cartoons on TikTok and Instagram and all that. And we have a lot of fun talking about animated cartoons.
Amazing. Thank you. I have to say thank you to my little brother who made my intro outro music, Xander. He did a great job. We can't hear it now, but it'll be in post. And thank you to everybody who's here. If you wouldn't mind, if you have a second, please YouTube comment or a 5-star Apple review. I think that would be dandy. I have a feeling it would do me a lot of good. So thank you so much for being here, Evan. We're going to head on out. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of whatever time of day it is, everyone. Bye.